Dear respected Thai, dear sisters and brothers. So welcome to the Q&A session of our third week of summer retreat. And I feel very honored to be here with my big brother and sisters. On the panel today we have Phap Dung. He is born in Vietnam, but he studied in the United States to become an architect. He's one of our elder brothers here in Plum Village. And Sister Nghiem is also born in Vietnam, but studied in the United States. And Sister Nghiem is coming from Holland. Has spent much of her adult life in France. And I'm Br Phap Luu. I come from the United States. And I live here for maybe, 15 years. So we have a chance for you, the children, the teens, the parents, to come up here and ask the question of your heart. So we know that when we look deeply in ourselves and we see that there's something burning inside, some question, something we need the community and our brothers and sisters to look into, then we can stand up and come up here and ask that question of our heart. It's not an intellectual question, something we can look up on Wikipedia, but something that is really about our daily life and the suffering and happiness of our practice. And a good question doesn't have to be long. So we'll start with the children and then invite some questions from the teens and the young people, and then from the adults. And if you feel a little bit shy to come up here, then you can write down your question on a piece of paper and try to get it to the bell master, and he will bring it to us. So we might take some written questions as well. So we'll start with the children. Are there any questions from the children? Yeah? You want to come up here? We'll take maybe 3 or maximum 4 questions from the children. Please come up. And if you speak English or French, you can ask your question in that language and we'll try to translate. And if you speak your question in another language, if you can bring a translator with you, that would be very helpful. So we can listen to a sound of the bell, come back to our breathing, and then we'll have our first question.
Lieve broeders en zusters, mijn vraag is, wat betekent niks? Wat is niks?
Dear brothers and sisters, my question is, what means nothing? What does nothing mean?
So I'll just repeat the question so that everyone can hear. So she asked the question, dear brothers and sisters, what is nothing? What does nothing mean? invite Phap Dung to. I think Phap Dung is very good about talking about nothing.
I don't know what happened this summer, but more and more children becoming philosophical, huh? I see my brothers and sister last 2 weeks up here meeting young philosophers. Well, we use language like word nothing to describe many things, right? So when we practice, we learn to look deeply and not get caught with the word nothing, right? Sometimes we use the word nothing to describe when something is not seen anymore, right? The food on your plate, you finish eating, right? You eat everything on your plate, and then you say there's nothing on the plate, right? So we use the word nothing to describe when we don't see something. Sometimes we have a cup, right? You say there's tea in that cup, and there's nothing in the cup, right? But is there something else in the cup? Air, right. So you can say there's nothing, but then you can say there's something, right? So we have to be very careful when we use the word nothing, and don't let it stop you from questioning the meaning of the word. You understand? I believe your question is very, you want to understand, and please continue to ask that question, okay? Yeah, when your plate is empty and you say there's nothing on the plate, and where did it go? That's something. The food. Right? So the food become into your stomach, it go, and it doesn't become nothing. So nothing and something have a relationship, right? Like there's nothing, but there's also something. So when you ask there's nothing, you have to ask, what is it that is nothing of? Huh? So it doesn't really disappear, but maybe we don't see it. You understand? So when you ask, there's not, what is nothing? What is nothing? Then you have to also be open to say, what is something? Yeah? Do you understand?
Yes, a little bit.
A little bit? Yeah. I just basically sharing with you the, sometimes don't just take the definition of nothing. Because in the dictionary, they probably say nothing is when there. What does it mean anyway? When something absent of something, right? But sometimes you need to look more carefully, so you don't get tricked. It's kind of like hide and go seek, right? When you say something disappeared, you have to go, where did it go? So it doesn't become nothing, but maybe it becomes something else. Like when you see the cloud up in the sky, you ever see a cloud disappear? If you sit in the right place sometime over a hill, you see the cloud go, it appear, and then you wait for a while, and then you look somewhere, and then you look up, and then the cloud disappeared. And you say, there's nothing there now. But if you look closely, the cloud is still there. So please remember to, not to be caught with when there's no cloud, okay? So you can also look and see that where did the cloud go? It become the moisture. Sometimes it become the rain. And sometimes, right now, do you think there's a cloud here? There's nothing here, right? But I think if I keep doing this enough, and you can see a very light cloud. Yeah, I try, huh? But you've seen that sometime in a chemistry class or something, you do certain things, and it makes the temperature change and the moisture happen. Like when you take a shower, sometimes you see the mist come up. So please know that sometimes just because you don't see it there doesn't mean there's nothing there. Okay? Thank you for your question. And please continue to ask your other friends, okay? Maybe they have a very interesting answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Why we can't cook fish in Plum Village?
Why we can't cook fish in Plum Village?
So the question is, why can't we cook fish in Plum Village? Why can't we cook fish in Plum Village? Siti?
I think it's because we enjoy the fish alive and swimming in the pond more than we do seeing the fish in a pan. Yeah? And it's not that we cannot, it's that we don't want to. We choose not to cook the fish. And here we choose to eat what we call vegetarian. Do you know what vegetarian means? Yeah. It's just we don't eat meat, we don't eat fish. We try to eat in such a way that we minimize the suffering that we cause to animals, plants, and minerals, and even to people. And that's why when we are here in Plum Village, we choose not to cook the fish because we want to also prevent the fish from suffering a little bit. Can you imagine if someone put you in a pan and cook you? Yeah, not very nice, right? So that's why we choose not to cook the fish. Yeah, thank you.
Pourquoi les moines et les nonnes ils peuvent pas avoir d'amoureux?
Yeah, this So the question is, why can't monks and nuns be in love with somebody, or be in love with each other or another person?
Why can't not then have a lover?
Have a lover, okay. More. Thank you, Brother Dakian. So why can't monks and nuns have lovers? So I think this is for Sister Lan Nghiem.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear children, I'm always very happy to listen to the questions of children, but now to answer, that is something different. And I do like the question, because I think it's not completely true that we cannot have a lover. I remember a long time ago that I shared something about in a presentation, that I shared that I had a secret lover. And it was not really a man, but it was a sister. And it was a sister. One day I was a little bit upset, and so things were not going well. And I was upset, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And then I came in the study room, and then I found a beautiful flower on my desk. Beautiful. Een kaarsjeskruid in Nederlands. And I was so happy to see this flower, and it changed immediately my whole mood. Somebody had thought about me and knew that I was in a difficult mood and that it was not doing well and so on. And she put there a flower on my desk. So in this presentation I spoke from, I do have a secret lover, and that was this sister. And a secret lover, that is somebody who understands you and keeps an eye on you. And if you see that you are not doing well, then she is going to support you a little bit. For example, with putting a flower on your desk. So this is about the sister. And second part of the question. Why can monastics not have a lover? I think it is because we have chosen to spend our time in a different way. It's all about that. We like to be a monastic. We really like to practice. We like to share the practice with everybody. And maybe, as you have seen, it's a lot of work here. It's quite busy. We have many big retreats during the year. Now, like the summer retreat, many people, a lot of work. So we have chosen to spend our time in a different way and to share the practice with you. And imagine if I have this other kind of lover, a romantic lover, then I would not have so much time. Then I would have to share my time with this man and with the Sangha. So it's not so much time that I could be here and taking care of all the friends and so on. So it's about this. It's a choice in life that we have to make, and I have quite some peace with it. Thank you.
Warum ist mein Leben eigentlich immer schwerer als das von den anderen?
Why is my life always more difficult than others?
So, please correct me if I'm wrong. So the question is, why is my life always more difficult than the lives of others? So first, thank you for your question. And thank you on behalf of everybody here. Because when you ask a question like that, then we all bring it into our heart. And I think we all have gone through times in our lives where we feel our life is so much more difficult than the lives of other people. Is there anyone who has never felt that? Okay, there's one person who's never felt that. And for myself, sometimes I feel I'm not good enough. I feel I'm not smart enough. I feel like I'm only average, or maybe a little bit below average. Can you imagine, as a monk, you feel like that? But it's true. Yeah. And then I think, in my heart, I think it's not fair. Because look at him, or look at her. They are so talented. They're so intelligent. They speak so beautifully. They're so kind and compassionate. I'm very selfish. Sometimes I have that kind of thinking, even as a monk. Do you believe me? Yeah, it's true. And so then I wish, why? I wish to know why. Why is it like that? Why is my life so difficult? When I was young, in middle school, I was about 11, 12 years old, and there was a boy, and he was, when I would walk down the hallway, one day he punched me in the shoulder. I didn't see him, he just punched me. Ow. It was very painful. And then a couple of days later, he did it again. And then I started to have fear to see that boy. If I was walking in the hallway, and I saw that fear, I started to arrange my life so I could avoid that boy. And so I suffered very much. And I said, why is my life so difficult? Why can't I be... At that time, many of the boys, they grew... I was very young for my grade. So many of the boys, they grew up very tall. And I was still very small. And so I suffered for many weeks like that. In fear that I would see that boy and he would punch me in the shoulder again. And I wanted to be big and strong like the other boys, and be really cool, and talk with all the really cool girls. Yeah? Have you ever felt something like that? No? Okay. Yeah, maybe you want... Well, anyway, I felt like that. And then because I continued like that for a little while, then eventually we sat with somebody in the school, and we tried to have a communication. And you know what I found out? He didn't like my haircut. Can you believe that? He didn't like my haircut. And he thought I was trying to be cool. Maybe I was trying to be cool. And sometimes the boys are like that. They want to put each other in their place, you know? Like, you are not cool. You have to stay in your place. I am cool. Anyway, something like that. And now when we look back at that, it looks very silly. But at the time, when I was that age, it was very real for me every day. And I felt my life is so difficult. And I said, where did my happiness go? I was a very happy boy. And then suddenly my happiness disappeared. Because of, not because of that boy, but because of my fear. I let my fear take over. What he did was very little. But what happened inside of me was very big, the emotion. And that is true of most of our life. We have a strong emotion, and we think it's because of something out there, but actually it's something in here. Maybe there's something inside we're not taking care of. So that's why here in Plum Village we learn, I love to work with the children, to teach them how to breathe mindfully, you know, breathing in, breathing out. You know, we sing that song. And even when the kids are very noisy, when we start singing that song, after a few bars, then they calm down and they all start singing it. And I feel so at peace in my heart, because when I was that age, I didn't have that practice. I didn't have anyone who taught me how to come back to my breathing and be solid like a mountain. I didn't feel I could be solid like a mountain. Yeah. I just compare myself to other people, and I see who I am based on what I see about the other kids. Yeah. And so that's here in Plum Village we learn, you know, we are solid like a mountain. The mountain doesn't compare itself to the other mountains. You understand? The mountain is solid. It doesn't say, why is that mountain more beautiful over there? You know, there's a mountain, Mont Blanc, in the Alps. Do you know that mountain? Mont Blanc? It's a very beautiful mountain, and lots of people take pictures of the mountain, of that mountain. But you know, there's a mountain right next to it. But not many people take picture of that mountain. And so that mountain can say, why is my life so difficult? Do you think the mountain says that? Yes? No, of course, the mountain next to Mont Blanc, it doesn't say, why is everyone taking a picture of my brother? Well, I never heard it say that. So when we are able to touch the solidity in ourselves and be like the mountain, then we don't compare. We don't compare. We're happy, we're totally happy just who we are, being who we are. Even we have suffering, we have sadness, but we see that that is part of our life. And yeah, we don't need to look anymore at the others around. We can just breathe, and we can still smile. You can still smile, see? And just be solid like that mountain. And then sometimes someone will turn the camera a little bit and they'll see, wow, everyone takes a picture of Mont Blanc, but that mountain is so beautiful. And they'll take a picture of the other mountain. When you touch the beauty inside yourself, then people start to pay attention. They start to look and they see, wow, you know, you are so special. You're so beautiful. You're such a kind person. Yeah. It's magical. But it works. So please try that. Try breathing. You know, try just looking at the emotion when it comes up. When you feel your life is so difficult, just breathe. Just remember the bell and your breath, and just pay attention to that emotion inside of you. And you can smile to it, just like you smile to me. Okay? Can you try that? Okay. Good luck.
Je voulais vous poser comme question, comment auriez-vous des méthodes pour gérer mes mauvaises humeurs et les angoisses?
So the question is, could you help me with a method to take care of bad moods and anxiety? What is the method to help deal with bad moods and anxiety? Maybe these, I'm not sure if they ever have bad moods and anxiety. Of course they do.
I think I'm in a bad mood right now. And it's possible to smile to your bad mood. It's possible to learn how to relate differently to anxiety or sadness, or when you're feeling down, or when things don't go your way. And I think all of us, we have certain habit energies, the way we react to, for instance, when we have a bad mood. I'm asked to slow down. And that makes me even more in a bad mood. So for myself, I find I have to learn how to identify what triggers my bad mood. And very often it's because something happens that makes me uncomfortable. Like I cannot be myself. Like right now, I cannot speak at the speed I would like to speak. So it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. But at the same time, I've trained myself for many years. It doesn't mean that I'm good at it already, but it's a training to sit with this bad mood. When it comes up, I breathe through it. And during those few seconds of breathing, or just stopping and not being carried away by the bad mood, then you can see it from a different side. For instance, I'm uncomfortable speaking slow, but it would help our translators. So then I can speak slow just to help out. And then that kind of lifts my bad mood. It doesn't have to always be about me, for instance. I find all of us, we have a tendency when there's a bit of suffering that comes up, we want to get rid of it right away. Whether it's the bad mood or the sadness or anxiety, we want to get rid of it right away. And this causes us a bit more suffering, I think. But when we learn how to sit with it for a little bit, just allow it to be for a little bit, we can understand why it's there. Yeah. For instance, your bad mood may be something very simple. Maybe you didn't get enough sleep last night. Or you've been asked to do too many things that are out of your capacity. Like you overstretch yourself, and then your body is weary, your mind is weary, and then your bad mood comes up very easily. So just to sit with the bad mood and to look a little bit into it and to see where it's come from. And sometimes, like I say, it's something very simple. So we all have to kind of train ourselves in this, and not just to want to get rid of the bad mood right away, but to identify the reasons why the bad mood came about in the first place. And then it's easier to learn to be and to shift your mood. Yeah, that's, thank you.
Est-ce que vous êtes devenu moine ou monial pour combler un vide ou pour aider les autres?
Because to fill the void.
That is in you, or is it to help the others?
So, did you become a monk or a nun in order to fill a void in yourself?
In order to live better? You became a monk and a nun in order to live better or to help the others?
Did you become a monk or a nun in order to fill a void in yourself or to help others? Yeah.
I had a similar question, but phrased differently when I first met the monks and nuns. I went to a retreat and I saw them smile a lot. And I was raised in America, so I'm very suspicious of everything. Not all Americans, but particularly I was very afraid of things that seem too happy. You know, like Plum Village is, if I was a stranger and I came here, I would go, there's something really strange happening here. So I came to Plum Village. I followed the monks and nuns for 3 months around America to find out what happened behind the retreats. And I begin to understand more that the monks and nuns are humans. They do have suffering. They do have happiness. And they also have an aspiration to have meaning in their life. So it's not like we are running away from society, or we are trying to, get something for ourselves. But it's very linked, because if you can take care of yourself, I had anger issue. So if I learn how to take care of my anger and be angry less of my father, then I see that's very linked to my happiness. So sometimes you remove the anger and what you're left with is a lot of space to enjoy, right? Most of my young adult life, I was very easily, it didn't look like it, but inside I was very frustrated and very easily anxious, what do you call it, frustrated. They call it urban angst, they call it. It's very easily, but outside I look very happy. I do my job, 9 to 5, but inside there was a void, yeah, and it is related to the anger, so not having any meaning. So the monks, when I follow them, I see that some of them do have suffering, some of them know how to take care of it, some of them know how to enjoy life, to be grateful with their life, with their parents. So I begin to understand more that how to handle suffering and how to also live a life more meaningful than rather than work, spend, work, spend, work, spend. So this for me, and then I came to Plum Village and I started to discover more about their lives. And then I became a monk to kind of go undercover to see what they really do inside the residence. Well, so I'm still here researching whether they haven't kicked me out of here yet, yeah. But I always try to keep that in mind, huh? And I see more and more of my life, I became to be more true. So it's not about empty or you're fulfilling your life, but is what is the meaning of your life? What is your life for? And I see more and more, I'm finding out that when you share, when you can make another person happy, when you help another person suffer less, somehow their happiness, their transformation is also your happiness. So I don't have to go around to try to fulfill my life and to achieve and then have success and have a lot of money and have a car. But now my life is, I fill it up with other people's happiness and also their suffering. When I see a person can handle their suffering. I saw a young woman come out to the meditation hall and she cried in Lower Hamlet after the Dharma talk, and she ran and her friend tried to grab her and she pulled her hand away. And she told her friend, I think from far away, she said something. And so her friend bowed to her and then she went. And the young woman that was crying went to the bush in there and I saw her sit. And she put her bag down and she sit there for a while. And I was eating my orange. And she sat there for a while. And then she stood up, picked her bag, turned around, and you can tell her face more peaceful. And for me, that is my happiness. You see, so I also have suffering, and I learn how to take care of it, so I can recognize when someone does that. And so the emptiness we sometimes feel is because we don't have meaning. We don't know why we go to work. We don't know why we do what we do. And sometimes we don't even know why we're going on vacation. We just have to do it. This is my life before. Huh? It's time for vacation. What should I do now? Spend more money, right? And so this is what, as a young man, became more empty, because my life didn't have a higher meaning. And this is why I kind of chose to become a monk, not to run away from society, but to live more meaningfully. And sometimes people come here and they say, we are here, not really the world. The world is out there. Now I have to go back to the world, right? Tomorrow or the next day. And this is not the real world. And that, we have to question that. I mean, if you accept that, then that's why we have anxiety, we have depression, we have a lot of... So we need to create a way of living that can help us have fulfillment, and not to constantly have a void, an emptiness, no meaning. What you mean with vide, emptiness, is a life without meaning. So it's more or less philosophical. It's like, what is the meaning of your life? What is my purpose every morning that I wake up? You have to answer that question every day. And you will see that it will link to your happiness. And you'll see that it is not about you and your career and your thing, but it's actually becoming more connected to other people, strangers, people in need, people in other countries who do not have what we have here. And this is what the children are needing to learn. That's why there's young people asking questions like that, because they have not seen suffering. So sometime as a young person, I encourage you to travel to India, to Laos, to Vietnam, to see where we live in. So that's what happened to me in America. I became very close. So when I travel, I began to see really the suffering in the world. And then that will open, yeah, new way of looking. So our view, we need to always open more, huh? So I hope, I guess that's my experience of handling my emptiness, I guess, but more bringing meaning, huh? So please, you're still young, so really ask your question, what is that brings meaning to my life? And it doesn't have to be saving the world. It could be meaning between your father and you, your mother and you. So to reconcile with your father, all of a sudden, your life is more fulfilling. And so when I succeed in something, it's for my father. You see, when I play with the young boy, that is my father. And so you connect with your father. So this is, it doesn't have to be grand meaning. Could be very simple. So please take care.
Yeah. Dear respected Thai, dear respected teachers, community, I'm trying to make my question as clear as possible, but I feel I need to explain a bit the situation. My question is about the relationship to my sister, and it's very difficult. She has been suffering from deep depression for many years now, and a long time I put a lot of effort into being active and helping her, which only took me energy, and yeah, there was nothing that could help her, and I realized that she needs to help herself, and I could only be there at her side, but she doesn't let me be there. She doesn't talk to me there, and at the moment there is no contact, and I feel I'm not happy with that situation because I would like to be there for her, and I told her, but yeah, she doesn't talk to me. And last winter retreat, I sent her a letter. I tried to practice beginning anew, and I shared with her how the relationship feels for me and that I wish to change it, but I have no ideas anymore. And yeah, I asked her if she has any suggestions how we could have a relationship, how we could talk to each other. And she didn't react. And I sent her a message, and I said that I feel sad that she didn't react. And then she said, "I'm sorry, but I cannot do that." And yeah, since then we didn't talk to each other. I guess we both didn't know how to do. And so my question is if you could recommend any practice for me that I could do. Like, I would like to practice something like loving speech, deep listening, but how if there's no contact? And well, what happened, what I did was trying to be happy myself with my life, but now I feel like, how can I be truly happy if it's only possible that I exclude that from my life? It doesn't feel honest, doesn't feel right to me. Yeah, so I guess there are two parts about the question. Is there something I can do, I can practice with my sister, or how could I feel less selfish and guilty, like feeling letting her behind, alone? Yeah.
Dear, I do not know what is your name. Can you? Antonia? Sonia. Dear Sonia. Well, if I listen to you, it sounds like that you have tried many, many things already. You have a very long breath and you have not given up. It's not so easy to come with a ready answer, but I think there are two aspects in this question. I think you can look into how, in the meantime, how you can take care for yourself, that you do not become also like maybe in a depression and so on. I would say that it is possible that we overcome all difficulties, that there is always an end to that. But of course, sometimes it takes much more energy and much more time than in the other case. Sometimes a difficulty, like a problem that you have with your sister, that looks very difficult, and that you have tried everything and you cannot come to a solution. I think we can finally overcome all difficulties, and that is also exactly the way that we grow. If we manage to overcome this difficulty, then we can grow. I would like to give an example for myself. A very long time ago, I had also a big difficulty, I remember. Like really big, I found it at the time. I just came to France and I was doing like a course in France, in French. And this was at a university, and we were asked to give a presentation. And it was like divided in Dutch people and German and French and so on. And we were only with the two of us. We only two Dutch women. So it was a kind of be-in or bonte avond. And we had decided to give a presentation how to make Dutch pancakes. And the woman with whom I was, she said very quickly, okay, I will bake the pancakes here behind, and you are going to stand in the front. And I had to explain in French on how we were doing that in Holland to bake pancakes. Well, this was for me the very first time. It was just after college that I came here in France. So I had never given a presentation like that, and not at all in French. Oh, I will speak a little bit slower. And what I remember was that I was standing over there, and while explaining that my legs that began to tremble, and not a little bit, but they started to tremble enormously. And I was standing there in the front, and I did not know how to stop this. It was really like very badly. I did not manage on that evening, and I had a very unpleasant feeling about that, and it has also avoided me to later to come out again, because I was afraid that the same thing would happen again and that I could not survive. Later on, I have survived, and now I'm sitting here on this chair, and I'm still, I'm still alive. So it is possible to overcome very difficult things. I think for yourself, in this meantime, that you have to take well care for yourself, and that you will need a lot of joy, like a counterbalance to the depressivity of your sister. So maybe you can do something to have more joy, and it can be like going out or go into the nature. Maybe you have to move or do another study, or just, you know, something like a move, like a change in your life, what can bring you more happiness. And what is happening then, if you have much more happiness, that is something is happening here in your head. Now it sounds like quite full with this whole difficulty with your sister, and you're going to make a little bit of space for this. I think it will go away a little bit. You will send your energy not anymore to the difficulty in your head, but more to the things that you plan to do. So please try to focus on that. Bring some air, some freshness into your life, more joy, and I think you will be more capable of trying to overcome this difficulty. So this is the aspect for yourself. Please nourish your joy and happiness every day. Take well care for it. The second part is the relationship with your sister, and it looks like that you have done many things already. You have come to her, you have spoken with her, you have, when she did not want to speak with you anymore, you have written a letter. What is our practice? We try to write a letter. We call it a love letter. If it is difficult to communicate with somebody, we can put in a letter how we love the other person, maybe some qualities of her. You can also put in this letter like remembrance, souvenirs from the past. Maybe you have done many things together. I do not know about her age, if there is a big difference in age between you and your sister. Maybe you have done many things in the past together, and you had a lot of joy and fun and adventures. So you can recall that in the letter. Nice things that you have done together and that you have very good memories about. That can help her. That can help her to overcome this. Well, it sounds like she's like very sad and depressive, to overcome, to lift up her mood. You said you have tried it already, but maybe you have to try a second time. If I was you, as long as there is no communication, no like oral communication, to keep writing her. Maybe to try with a different letter. So, dear Sonia, I just continue. So I would like to encourage you to keep going on with writing, maybe another letter in the style that I just have painted, with her qualities, with sweet memories and so on. And maybe for yourself, in the beginning it's difficult to write this because you have done already and no result up until now. But you will see if you really take time to write a letter like this, like really like a whole afternoon, you lock yourself in a room with chocolate and you do not come out the room before you have finished this letter. And then you will notice by writing down all those good memories that you have with her, you know, that there will something change in you. There will something change in you and you will feel a lot of compassion for her. And this compassion, she will taste from the letter that she's going to receive. So please do not give up. I really would like you to continue with keeping contact, and maybe in this way, and maybe later there will be, she's going to respond. I think you have to water this keeping contact like every day. And in the meantime, take well care for yourself and that you do not lose hope or that you become desperate. Thank you.
No, I was just going to share that, you know, when the monks and nuns, when we're up here for a question and answer session, we are all human beings and we all have our own experience. So we shouldn't mistake when we give an answer that it is like the absolute truth, or you know, we are sharing from our heart, from our own experience as human beings, and just as we all have the opportunity to do while we're here this week. So we don't need to think that one answer is absolutely the only one, and it's all beautiful experiences, personal experiences that we have here, and that is that's all we're here to offer. So thank you for your question. Yeah. So there's a few written questions that are, I kind of grouped them on a similar topic. So the first one is, dear sister, brother, may you please share with us about the practice of mindfulness at work. And please, could you talk about the organization of time? In my life, I always live in a quickly mode, speed mode. Although I practice meditation every day and I breathe consciously, I'm still living in a hurry because I have too much work in this time of my life. Thanks a lot, a lotus for you.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, I grew up in America, educated and worked as an architect 4 years before meeting Thai. And so, you know, the whole system of having a job and work is the whole education system too. And please know this is a very biased answer, so please take it lightly. I chose to leave all that, so it's very biased, okay? So we're trained to, you know, always run after time, right? As if we don't have enough. Yesterday was lazy day. Yeah, lazy day is Thai's one of Thai's. What is it? Techniques? What is it? A shot you take to so you don't get sick is a. Yeah, is a kind of a lazy day is a real. One time the monks came to Thai because we heard a lot of people don't like the word lazy, and we asked Thai, Thai, can we change the word lazy to like maybe rest day or something more, because people feel lazy, you know? And Thai said, don't ever change the word lazy. I've never heard Thai so strong, right? He said, because people feel guilty, you know, to be lazy. And he said, that's good. They should need to look at their guilt, because the society is overdeveloped, overproductive, right? So we think we're advanced, our culture is developed, right? But I think now there's another way of looking. We're overdeveloped. And we're not looking down at those other southern countries and nations, say they're underdeveloped. In fact, they're fine. We're going there to develop them, and we're making them lose a lot of their environment. So in a way, we have to relook. We are overworked, we're overdeveloped, we are over-timed, over-scheduled. Every time I visit my family now, I hardly can squeeze out some time from my niece and nephew, because they go to soccer on the Saturday, piano and ballet on Sunday. I mean, even the weekend, the mother has to run to take them to, and I have to go with them because I want to be with my niece and nephew. And I watch them play soccer. It's good, you know, to have have activity for the kids, but it's a little bit overworked, you know. I think you know what I mean. That's probably why you're here, right? So I don't have to try to convince an orange that it's an orange, huh? So this is, but working, we also need to look at the way we do need to work. We're not all lazy. It's only one day of the 7 day. And so when we work, we have to reorient ourselves. Like washing the dishes. You know, one day somebody will propose, why don't Plum Village buy a big washing machine and it could get done quickly, right? No buckets and cleaning and then give it to the kid to take it, to put it in the thing, and it's a lot of work, right? You need 20 people to wash a few dishes. But there's an enjoyment while we wash the dishes. It's kind of like a waste of time. God, get it over with. So why do we make you wash dishes? We could buy a machine, right? And same thing, so convenience, sometimes it can actually diminish your enjoyment, your happiness. So this is work that, this is just like meditation hall, yeah? We had a discussion yesterday about working in the meditation hall and not rushing. Because maybe there's not enough time and we have to catch the bus. So sometimes, you know, reality, you have to do it and you have to rush. But your attitude is, it depends on your mental attitude. You do it, and some people do have habits still, and there are different levels of rushing. There's some people who rush, it looks like they're rushing, but they're not rushing. Some people, it looks like they're really doing it slow, but they are rushing. This is my experience. There's a lot of, how come they're not doing it right? Yeah? How come they're not doing it mindfully? You know, you look like you're doing mindfully, but that's not really mindful. So you have to be careful. Some people can do a lot of work and look like they're rushing, but their mental attitude is enjoyment. They're doing it for others. So it depends. You're washing the dishes, you're doing it for the community, you're doing a carrot, you're doing it for the community, for other people to eat. But you know, you don't have to do it like peel the carrot like this, you know? Yeah? That means you're stuck with an idea. So work doesn't mean, so we have to be very careful. Mindfulness at work, we have to be careful. So, of course, you know, take a break on the computer, and so many things. You have to use your mindfulness, your intelligence, to find a balance in yourself, to not lose yourself in the work. So how you sit on the front of the computer, how you brush. So look at the way you work. So that's just the mechanics of work, okay? And there's also the meaning of work. So also we have to look at why you're working. What are you working for? You want more money, you want more, you have an idea, you want a bigger house, you want a retirement plan. These ideas you have to look at. That's maybe pushing you to sacrifice the present moment for the future, you see? So we need to look at this. This is what I had to wake up from. 9 to 5, retirement plan, 2 garage house, a nice family, and you know, these kind of, what do they call it, America dream? Is it still called American dream? So these are things with the practice, with the deep looking, we begin to look at work. So what I'm sharing is also the meaning, why you work, and there's also looking at our relationship with the watch, with your planner, your schedule. These are things that you learn, and we become very mechanical, and we don't know why we do it. We just wake up, do it. And so we need to look at this. So find time. So I encourage all the families, everyone, to, you know, reduce a little bit. You don't need, like, to have everything, just enough. And if you do succeed, use that to help other people. And that will bring more meaning to your work. You see the cycle? It needs to go in circle like this. You know, the system now is very capitalistic, to save, hold everything. And you see, there's only a certain amount, and after that, the happiness don't increase. I think more and more we know that, right? After 10 shirts that you have, it's become very, okay, another shirt, another shirt. So please know why you're working and how much you should work to maintain a kind of enough for your family, so that you don't sacrifice your present moment, happiness with your family, with your loved one, with helping other people. So your time is not just to, you know, you should spend meaningfully to help other people, to help your friends, your relatives, your brothers and sisters, other families. So this is, so you might have a work that might not be the most meaningful, but it pays you the thing. And then you take the money, you take some of the time, and you help, you see? So don't try to always, you have to find the work that is the most meaningful. In fact, the meaning is what you put into it. So you could be a bus driver, and you could be a very good bus driver. If you remove the idea that you have to be a successful business person. You see the work? You enjoy washing your dishes, driving the bus. So it's all based on the quality of your attitude. And you can always learn more. Thank you. And
心を満たすほどの幸せを感じるための条件はありますか？
Dear Thai, dear brothers and sisters, dear friends, he asked the question, is there any condition to make people satisfied and then become happy? Is there any conditions that can make people satisfied and feel happy?
Dear Thai, dear, what is your name? Ray. Yeah, dear Ray, arigato for your question. So, this question is very important, and we know the Buddha, he sat with this question as well. He asked himself, is there any condition for my fulfillment, for my complete happiness? And at that time he had a wife, and he had a child, and he had a pretty good career. Maybe he was going to be the chief of his village, like his father. So he seemed to have many good conditions that most people spend their whole life trying to obtain, thinking that that will bring them happiness. And yet he wasn't happy. And that's why we're all here today. Because he saw that those conditions were not sufficient for his happiness, for his true happiness. And so he decided to leave behind his family, to cut his hair, and to live in the forest. He tried looking for roots in the ground to eat. He went to live in different spiritual communities, and he always sat with that question, how can I find true happiness? Or another way it's phrased is, why is there suffering? Or what is the nature of this suffering? And our teacher Thai, he often talked about the happiness and suffering like the sides of a coin. You cannot have happiness without suffering. You cannot even imagine suffering without happiness. They inter-are. So it means that looking into our situation of suffering, we can find happiness. So you could say that suffering is a kind of condition that can lead us to happiness. Actually, as monks and nuns, I know myself, and many of my brothers and sisters, we also ask this question. Because actually, we can get quite comfortable as a monk or a nun. You see, here in Plum Village, we eat delicious vegetarian food, and we live with many people who are very understanding, very compassionate, very kind, smiling a lot. And we don't have to do too much work. At least we don't get fired if we don't do too much work. And so actually, many people come here because they think, wow, these are good conditions for me to be happy. And then and then they find out they have to live together with other people for the rest of their life. And they start saying, why? Look at Tai teaches this, but look. They look and they say, but this, and so somehow, even they have all these good conditions of good food, a place to sleep, go to the doctor if they're sick, but they still are not happy. They're not able to live together with their brothers and sisters, and that is a pity. And so we have to sometimes look and see, is my happiness dependent on outside conditions? Even here in Plum Village, we have to ask ourselves, because we have, monks and nuns, they haven't always enjoyed such good conditions as we have in Plum Village to practice. Sometimes they lived in a very authoritarian regime, where they wanted to destroy the Buddhist temples. They wanted to make the monks and nuns marry each other, to give up their celibate life. That happened many times in the history of Buddhism, and that continues to happen today in some places. And so, even in those conditions, those monks and nuns, they were able to touch deep happiness. Even like, I remember always the story of one of Thai's students who was put in jail, and she only had a little bit of space, and she practiced walking meditation every day, just breathing and being with her step. And she was able to generate happiness, even just in that tiny space with only a little food to eat. She kept her mind clear, and she enjoyed every step. And so anytime that I feel that I'm a little bit upset because my conditions of happiness are not sufficient, then I remember that nun practicing in the jail. And I feel a little bit of shame. How could I be so, greedy? And that helps me to remove the conditions of external conditions of happiness, and to see that actually I can generate a kind of unconditioned happiness. Something that's not dependent on external or even internal conditions. And sometimes we touch that. That is a beautiful moment. When you touch that, you need to remember it. Maybe you stop and you take 12 breaths. See, my happiness has not come from anywhere. And my happiness is not going anywhere. There are moments like that in life, and in my experience, when we practice, they become more and more, and bigger and longer. And that's why I love the practice so much, because touching this kind of unconditioned happiness. But it takes practice, because we are conditioned to like conditioning. We are conditioned to like habits. Our habits are... People condition themselves to like their own suffering. Can you imagine that? They fall in love with their own situation of suffering. And when you want to help them to come out of it, they prefer to stay there. And that is a funny quality of human beings. So keep that question. It's a beautiful question. Like the Buddha, you can be a Buddha and ask, what is this unconditioned happiness? Keep asking yourself that question. You look at your suffering, you see it transform. Yeah, you hold it there. It's very beautiful. Yeah, that's the secret of the universe. Okay? Good luck. Dear friends, it's 11:15, and we have a beautiful walk for the community today to go down to Shunha and enjoy the garden there and maybe some music. So we know there are other questions that are to be asked, and we encourage you to bring the question up in your Dhamma sharing group if you feel courageous enough. There are also wonderful other monks and nuns who can share their experience and help with the question. And also there are a number of written questions that we did not have a chance to get to, and I will give them to the brother or sister giving the Dhamma talk tomorrow, so they can keep it in mind when they are and hopefully be able to answer the question in the talk tomorrow. So I'd like to thank my elder brothers and sisters for coming up here today and sharing their experience, and thank you all for, we do this together. This is a process of deep looking, and we continue as we finish the last 2 days of this third week together. We'll finish by listening to 3 sounds of the bell.